Welcome, everyone. It's another episode of the Backmarkers F1 Show. We're obviously still in transition with our new studio here in Shaker's basement, but it's coming along slowly.
Slowly see more pictures up as we go.
Yeah, that was all Shaker's decorating and organizing. I'm terrible at that. Like, it would have been slanted if I would have put it up. And
I tried, man. It comes with working on movie sets. You gotta have to stay on top of it.
Absolutely. So there you go. This is the Australian Grand Prix recap. It's just myself and Chris Cato and Shaker Barty. Tyler McDonald, if you obviously been watching our show, or if you are new to our show, is the third member of our team. He's away for this week, so we'll catch up with him in Bahrain. So, first race of the season is in the books, and, you know, after a long couple of months off without any F1, obviously we had testing, but it was great to finally see, you know, when it all counts, when all the points are on the table.
For sure.
And a lot of interesting things happened in this race, and I kind of feel like an idiot after all those predictions. I think your predictions are still pretty good, honestly.
Well, I mean, we won't know anything until halfway through the season on how it's going, but I mean, I kind of made my predictions just based on, you know, feeling, especially with Verstappen. I have a huge faith in him this year, so we'll see how he does.
Yeah, good start for him, right?
Exactly. But yeah, no, we'll have to see how it goes. We can't say anything, I feel like, until like 3 or 4 races in to see how the teams are doing on their own. But like you said, it was a very interesting race to start off the season. A lot of crashes, you know, a lot of fails, a lot of things that shouldn't have happened. But, you know, it's what comes with racing.
Yeah. And like you said, I think what's important, if any message you kind of get away from this episode, it's that it's the first race of the season. It's very difficult to tell.
Yeah.
And this is a very specific track. I mean, it is a street circuit after all. It's very low grip, so very difficult to overtake. It's pretty narrow.
Yeah.
You can't really make any conclusions or sort of kind of pecking orders until we go to Bahrain and China.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of get an idea. Yeah. So if you're a Ferrari fan out there, you don't have to panic just yet, but we'll get to that a little bit later. I guess I kind of wanted to just start with badass Bottas. I mean, I'll apologize for underestimating him, because last season, toward the end, I think in the Brazilian Grand Prix, when I think the Ocon and Verstappen incident happened, I said that he was going to lose his seat if he continued the way he was performing to Esteban Ocon. Now I'm completely thinking that's wrong. And, I mean, he just came out of nowhere. It was an absolutely fantastic weekend, and I was so impressed with his driving all weekend long.
What was it, 20, 25 seconds he was ahead?
Ahead of Hamilton, and then 50 seconds, almost a minute ahead of Vettel.
Yeah, I think I was reading he overlapped twice. It was in his second overlap, correct? Ahead of Hulkenberg?
Yeah, he lapped up until P7.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy to me. I mean, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, his pace was blistering. And even though he didn't qualify on pole position, I think that was probably the best thing that happened for him, because pole position hasn't won the race, and I think like I think this won like twice in the last 10 years.
Oh, just at Australia or just
Australia?
Okay,
yeah.
wow.
I mean, Hamilton has been on pole 8 times and has only won twice.
Wow.
So pole position is not very advantageous, as we saw obviously in this race and then the past 2 years. I don't know if there's more grip on the right hand side of the grid where P2 starts from.
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask Danny Ricciardo that.
Not a lot of grip on the turf, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. Especially when you go up on the curb, you know?
Yeah. I tell you what, though, if you need landscaping services, you call Renault and Daniel Ricciardo. He'll
get it done.
He'll trim that grass for you. Boy, what a poor start for
I just
Daniel.
That very especially because it was his home race, you know. And I think you mentioned earlier right before we started that, you know, he was saying he did take a little bit harshly leading up to the race because of all the media that he had to go see, especially with driving for the first time with Renault. So obviously there was a big lead up to him coming into Australia, but I think we expected a little bit more, obviously, not for him to not qualify at all, but we'll have to see what he does with Renault.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a lot of media obligations, obviously, when it's your home race. And like you mentioned with Renault, he had a lot of sponsorship, you know, that had to do with Renault. Like he did some driving with, for something with Castrol. And all that stuff in the lead up, I mean, he barely has time to sort of think about the race and prepare for it. So yeah, he was mentioning that come 2020 he'll be approaching it differently and probably saying no. I mean, he's such a great guy, right? And he wants to please everybody, and he wants to make himself available, which as fans we really appreciate.
We really do appreciate. Yeah, exactly. And we want to see Danny Ricciardo doing all the media stuff. We want to see him get involved. But yeah, like he said, it's very hard to stay concentrated on the race when you have everybody approaching you, asking how you're going to be doing with Renault this year. You know, especially if the first time that you're in a different car for what? He's been with Red Bull more than 10 years, around 10 years now.
Yeah.
So it's a big change, even though it is the same engine that he was using last year pretty much, and, you know, with a little updates here and there or stuff we don't know about. But yeah, I mean, like Hülkenberg said in his documentary, he's in there to win it and do better than his teammates. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, obviously I think Renault will bounce back. They'll have a slow start to the season, which I think this year will be difficult because the midfield is so tight. But obviously that's not the potential of Renault, or I hope it isn't at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I think brighter things to come for them. But yeah, getting back to Valtteri, I mean, boy, it was just such a surprise. I mean, Lewis Hamilton put in a fantastic lap in qualifying. And, you know, Valtteri wasn't too far behind. I think he was a couple 100ths of a second off.
Mm-hmm.
So in the lap he put in the first run in Q3 was really impressive. And then, yeah, in the race, I mean, he just had a fantastic start. He's been known to have really good starts.
Mm-hmm.
Austria 2017, when he won the race, I mean, you know, critics will say that was a jump start, but, it could be just a really good one as well.
Yeah.
And, yeah, after that, he just overtook Hamilton, and he was gone.
He was gone. Well, I want to compare it to how, like, Hamilton drives when he's up ahead in first place. You know, when he's up there, he's sticking up there. And I think it kind of shows how much Mercedes actually puts into their cars because, you know, last 5 years, Mercedes, that's what they do best. They get up ahead and they stay there. And is it up to the driver at that point, or is it up to the engine? It was all him maintaining the entire, you know, going up into first and just sticking there and just managing his car really well to do it. I don't think I saw any issues or anything coming from the pit of him to do anything differently.
No, everything was under control, and I think his engineers are even saying only way you lose this race is, you know, by safety car or, you know, you just lose grip or whatever it is. And yeah, like you say, he managed it very well. And that's a good point you bring up with Hamilton. He did manage the race, but also he was a very good front runner. And we see how many times have we seen Hamilton just get out in front and then he's gone. We don't see him for the rest of the race. So, man, you know, this is really good signs. And we were critical of Valtteri Bottas, and I think that it was fair criticism, you know, to say that he was kind of taking a backseat in Mercedes and letting them step all over him. Obviously, it's very difficult for him because Lewis Hamilton is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But now this changes the dynamic, and you can't win the championship, obviously, in the first race.
No.
But you can set the tone for the championship.
Yeah, you can set a really good precedence for how you want to perform and how you want your team and the rest of the drivers and the other teams to see you on the track. And I think he did, like you said, he did a very good job keeping it up, and I really hope he continues it for the rest of the season because I've said it multiple times last year. I want to see a better Valtteri. Like, I want to see him, you know, keep up how he did it last year. Obviously, he had some unfortunate events happen last year where he just couldn't do it, or it just didn't happen. I don't know. I never lost faith in Valtteri. Obviously, I said he should have left Mercedes to be to do a little bit better. But if he's going to be at Mercedes, you might as well strive to be number one there.
Absolutely. I think maybe me or Tyler might have lost faith in Valtteri, and honestly, I kind of forgot about him.
Yeah.
We were so bought in with the Ferrari hype in preseason testing, and Hamilton obviously being a contender, Verstappen being a contender. We really didn't give much attention to Valtteri Bottas, and I mean, that was his whole thing, is he wanted to prove everybody wrong, and that was, for me, was his mindset. During the race, we can talk about this whole fastest lap point thing a little bit later, but he wanted the 26 points. He's like, okay, what's the plan? What are we going to do? And they're like, well, you know, we're not going to pit. We're just going to, you know, manage everything, be conservative. And he's like, but I want the 26 points.
Yeah.
And when I was telling you just before we got on the air about his post-race radio, you know, I think I got it in one of the tabs there. I think it was in the cool-down lap or just when he was going in the podium, but they were thanking him, like, you know, great job and everything like that. And then he's like, to whom it may concern, fuck you.
Yeah.
And I didn't think he had that in him, honestly. He's a quiet guy.
He is very quiet. When you told me that, I was like, no way. And it's nice to see the fire in him, you know? He wants to prove his doubters wrong. He wants to do really well. And, I mean, he did. He did exactly that in Australia. But, yeah.
Yeah, and it was to, that message, I think, was to all of his critics, maybe to Mercedes as well. The sponsor that dropped him from last year, that was a longtime sponsor of him. So he was focused. He said he had a really good offseason, a really focused offseason, and it showed. So this throws a sort of a nice little wrinkle into the championship battle. We might have a four-way battle now.
Sure. Well, I mean, depending on how Vettel and Charles do.
Well, yeah, let's move on to that one now. So, tip of my cap, Valtteri. I am on the Bottas bandwagon.
Yeah, no, I am as well. I have been for a while, but it's nice to see him not come second or third and, perform the way he did.
Yeah, it was nice to see. Like, I even said it too. I'm like, you know what? If Mercedes has to win the championship again, let it be Valtteri.
Yeah, just change it up. I'm tired of seeing Hamilton get first place every time and win every time.
Yeah, with all due respect, it's time you move over a little bit here.
Yeah.
Let's have some new guys challenge here for the title.
And he's, I don't know how many years he is younger than Hamilton, but, I mean, if Hamilton does move on, which obviously I don't think he will for a very long time unless another better team comes along, why would he choose not to stay after his performance today?
Yeah.
Or on Sunday, sorry.
And I think the biggest loser out of anybody on Sunday was Esteban Ocon. Like, I don't know if you saw him, like, in the garage afterwards. He's clapping like, oh, shit.
It's like, I thought I was going to get to drive sometime.
And you were telling me about how bad you were feeling about him watching the Netflix documentary.
Oh, yeah,
and
man.
Same here. I mean, a great guy. I mean, I was angry at him when the whole Verstappen incident happened, but he really is a great guy and a sort of a rare story, literally coming from nothing and not really having much financial backing or sponsorships. Made it to F1, is very talented, and is kind of sitting on the outside looking in now.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention in that Netflix documentary, they mentioned at the very end that this year is the youngest, age of drivers and average in terms of is the youngest ever since the 1950s.
Wow.
So yeah, the amount of drivers who are driving this year, out of the 20, I think most of them are under 23, 22. So, and if knock on wood, nothing happens to Valtteri or Lewis. If anything does happen, it's going to be even a younger average, with Ocon does come in. So it really should be a very interesting season. I think there's only less than probably 4 people who are getting close to their 30s this year. So yeah. It should be very interesting.
Isn't it crazy how young they are too? I mean, I looked at when they were interviewing George Russell or Lando Norris, and I'm like, I mean, can I see your ID? They look like 14, 15.
Yeah, well, I think Norris is 18. And he
super young.
He's really young, and in the same documentary, he's cocky. He's got a little bit of a fire in him. Because they asked about they even mentioned well, sometimes a lot of younger drivers come in and they'll last a season or two, and then they'll be out and they'll be like, oh, what can you do differently? He's like, oh, that's not gonna happen. Why? I'm better. Hey, that's all. Yeah, that's all he had to say. He's like, I'm better. That's just what it comes down to. So I'm very interested to see. I don't have a whole lot of faith in McLaren.
Oh, really?
I'll be honest. But I'm very interested to see how he does and how all the newer, younger drivers do coming in. So it should be good. It should be really good.
I think Lando Norris had a good first weekend. He seemed the most nervous to me when they were interviewing him. He looked legitimately, nervous, almost kind of afraid, but he qualified really well, made it to Q3, and then he had a tough race because Antonio Giovinazzi, I think that's what you pronounce it actually. He did a fantastic job on old tires, holding off the mid-pack, and it helped out guys like Lance Stroll and Kvyat eventually. So I think he'll be disappointed with the way he wasn't able to overtake, but it's Australia, so
it is difficult.
Yeah.
We didn't see very many overtakes, and when we did, it was obviously the faster car that was taking over. So
so all in all, I think a really good debut weekend, not just for him, but all the rookies, like you were mentioning. So it looks like we're going to have a good crop of young talent and young drivers, and they're going to deliver by the looks of it. So
yeah, no, I was very impressed. Very impressed.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I just actually just checking my notes here. I had Carlos Sainz written.
Yeah, next.
I think it was an MGUK issue, not confirmed though. I knew that's what they were saying on the radio, but it happened very early in the race. It went up in flames. I was kind of like, man, are you gonna get out of the car a little bit quicker here? I mean, it's on fire, you know.
It's the curse of Fernando Alonso.
Yeah. Well, you kind of were wondering because he was doing the 12 hours of Sebring in the States, and when you saw Honda in qualifying and even McLaren, the team itself, do well on Saturday, he was like, you know, maybe I made a mistake. And then like 11 laps in, the engine blows up, and he's like, nah, you know what? I'm gonna stay right here in the U.S., do my IndyCar, do my endurance racing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say. I mean, Carlos Sainz is obviously a huge follower of Fernando, and obviously it's not the same car, but you never know.
It's that Fernando Alonso effect.
Yeah,
you know,
he doesn't want anybody else in. You know, the big thing is he's not running the team.
And I actually thought that having him not in the team would help. I think Fernando had too much power at McLaren, and they were trying to do too many things to please him that might not have been good for the future of the team.
Yeah.
So this driver lineup for them of Sainz and Norris is good to build on.
Yeah.
I still think they'll be actually pretty decent this year. To me,
I do as well.
They'll be the second worst team, not just because they're that bad, but because the midfield's so competitive.
Oh, it's because Williams is that bad.
yeah. Jesus. They're still finishing the race, by the way.
Yes, they did. They
4
did
days later.
The race.
But I don't know with McLaren, right? I mean, when you just see the engine, whether it's they moved on from the whole Honda thing, and then
they're on Renault now, right? That's who's running their engine.
Yeah, it took Honda one race with Red Bull to get a podium. So.
Better than all the other Renault engines that were there. So,
should be good for next year's Netflix series,
was
right?
Was it Tyler that was hating on Honda all of last year, or the lead up to it? But
yeah, it might have been both of us.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, there's still a lot to say or a lot to see, I guess, in general about how the engine does. But
there we go.
Yeah, we were expecting that to happen. Don't worry. But yeah, I mean, I'm still expecting quite a lot. Not a lot from McLaren, but I want to see them in the top 10. Like, I want to see them up there. I actually don't remember how well Norris ended up doing in the end.
I think he was P12.
P12. Yeah, so I'm still, yeah, you're right, P12. So, yeah, I'm still very interested to see how he does. We all know Carlos Sainz is a great driver. He proved that last year in his Renault. But yeah, I'm very interested to see how they end up going through, how they end up doing for the next couple of races, and you know, maybe McLaren will step up their game a little bit, and like you said, with Fernando not running it from behind, so
yeah,
should be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. Next driver I wanted to talk about, Lance Stroll.
Good for him.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that. He proved all the doubters wrong about the lead up coming up to this season, and good for him. He had a very good race. He showed what he can do when he's not sitting in a Williams. I'm gonna shit on Williams a lot today.
Yeah, clearly.
But yeah, like Racing Point or. I mean, obviously, it's still Force India. Everything in the background is still Force India. It's just a different name slapped on, pretty much. But had a very good drive. I think it was that was Danny Kvyat's fault. I can't really say anything about him trying to overtake. But I mean, he did good to recover. There was, I think Danny Kvyat was running in the inside, and he ended up going straight through. And I honestly thought it was going to be a crash. But he did a really good job staying out of it and stayed focused and kept going. And he was right behind Kimi. It's not bad. He did pretty well.
He was quicker than Perez all weekend. Unlucky in Q1. I think he got caught behind some traffic, which is why he didn't have a good first run.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, the good start, and we had a lot of good interaction on our Lance Stroll video that we posted. If you guys haven't seen it, we kind of just did a sort of a breakdown as to why people hate on Lance Stroll and why you should kind of give him a chance. And actually, to my surprise, a lot of people came out, like defending him.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people were actually shitting on him. And one comment actually went into like super detail of the last race of like he was much faster on harder tires than Perez was.
Yeah.
and it was like a full like
Wow.
3 paragraphs.
I should read this.
Yeah, I mean, go check it out. I think it's like pinned at the top just because I'm like that A for effort.
Yeah. Just paying attention.
Yeah, but he was right too, and it's I didn't even really pick up on exactly which tires he was on. I know he had a really good first stint, and Giovinazzi holding up Lando Norris helped him get into the top 10. But yeah, it's what we were saying in the previous podcast too, which was that Lance Stroll is one of the best starters last season, and now when he's actually in a good car, you notice it, and that good start helped him get into P9 and score 2 points. And I think it's going to be more to come for Racing Point when they go to tracks that's more overtaking, a little more power sensitive, which I think will be good for their car. And they got a lot of upgrades that they came with Australia, so they're still working the new car out. It was essentially a brand new car from what we saw in testing. So, for Perez, you're kind of going, ooh, I got my work cut out for me this season.
I have a question on that. Do you think if Racing Point, Force India wasn't bought out by Lawrence Stroll, that we would still see Lance Stroll at Force India, or would he still be at Williams, or would he not be driving at all?
He would probably still be at Williams because Lawrence Stroll's money would be going to Williams.
Would still be going to Williams, right?
I think you guys sort of saw it in the Netflix the first couple episodes where they said Lawrence Stroll has a lot of money into Williams, and if he sees that the investment isn't paying off, he'll put his money elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I think that when this whole incident came up with Vijay Mallya, the owner of Force India, and this whole administration came about, I think Lawrence Stroll saw the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, why would he spend his money supporting another company when he could have his own?
Yeah, and I think that he saw where Williams is going, and probably that was a very smart move. I mean, he's a billionaire, so I'm sure that he's done something right.
Yeah, exactly.
He's made some smart decisions in his life, so he saw the ship sinking, so to speak. And somebody was saying like, oh, well, he could have kept Ocon in there, but I'm like, are you not going to put your son in that seat? I mean, I'm pretty sure most people would.
I thought about that, and maybe Ocon could have had better performances, but I don't think they would have had the same money as they would have had with keeping Perez in there. They got, obviously, like I said, they haven't changed anything about what's going on in the background of Racing Point. It's still all Force India. Everything about them is still Force India. But I think they just have a little bit more spending money to do a little more research and then, spend a little more money just in general on what they can do and with their drivers and with their car and with everybody else there. So I think we should be seeing a big contention between Haas, Renault, and Force India this year for 4th place, in my opinion.
I'd throw Alfa Romeo in there too.
Alfa Romeo as well. I think we should see a big contention between them, other than just was it Haas and Renault last year? I mean, Force India had a pretty good run, but this is shaping out to be a really good year in terms of what we can see in the midfield.
That was one of the most exciting things all weekend, especially in qualifying, because it was the first race. You had no idea where anybody was going to be.
Yeah.
So it was super exciting, and you were on the edge of your seat just to try and see who's going to come out on top. And we still kind of don't really know. It looks like it might be Haas.
Yeah.
But then again, Alfa Romeo had a decent result with Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I think that Renault will, as the season progresses, will become stronger when we go to more natural circuits like upcoming in Bahrain and in China. And then, I mean, like even Toro Rosso, for example, looked really good. And Danny Kvyat drove really well.
Yeah, he drove really well. He was
Tyler's
P10.
favorite driver.
Yeah, he was P10.
Yeah.
Like,
I held off Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull.
Exactly.
That must have felt good for him.
Oh, yeah, especially Pierre Gasly leaving Toro Rosso and all. So, and yeah, obviously you could see the huge difference between their cars with Verstappen up in P3 and, Danny Kvyat obviously in P10 and Gasly in P11. It was just pure driving. I don't think it had anything to do with, obviously, with their cars at that point, because Danny Kvyat proved that he can do it. He can get top 10 places with the Toro Rosso.
Yeah, and even his teammate Alex Albon, I mean, a somewhat difficult weekend. He spun in FP3 and hit the wall, and then had another couple spins. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't too bad of a weekend for him. So I think he'll be strong as well with that partnership. So yeah, I think the midfield battle is going to be pretty crazy all year round, and it'll be constant shuffling. I think there's still a pretty big gap between the big three and then the rest of the field, unfortunately. Sure. But in terms of the midfield, I think from 4th to 8th, and then it's really close. McLaren, I think, is still on the cusp, and then Williams is like
Well,
way back.
I personally think if Danny Ricciardo has a good drive, he himself will make a big contention to bring Bruno to top 4 again.
Yeah.
But that's, if everything works out for him, he's driving pretty much, a similar car to what he had last season with a few variations here and there, yellow and gold compared to blue and red. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's first race, like we said. It's difficult to tell with Australia. I kind of wish Australia wasn't the first race, so we could sort of get a bit more of a definitive answer.
Have a little more of an idea of what's going on.
And the other thing too, as we've covered most of the race, but the new aero regulations just kind of not necessarily a verdict on it, but the cars were following a lot closer.
Yep.
And you didn't really see drivers having to back off to protect tires, to protect overheating engines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at one point when you were talking about the midfield battle, there was like a row of 4 or 5 cars, like the Toro Rosso, the Haas, Alfa Romeo, all together in one line, just coming out of the final turn onto the straight. So that looks like it's worked. You mentioned overtaking earlier in the show, and it was last year we had...
I think you have 8 versus 14 here. So.
Correct. So last year was 8 in last year's race in Australia, and this year we had 14, and then 6 of those this year were without DRS.
Wow.
So
that is almost up to the total overtakes from last year.
Yeah, and DRS doesn't have a big effect in Australia. I think we'll see more of the DRS effect in Bahrain, especially in China with the very long straight in China. Drivers were saying that it's a big. Verstappen said it was a huge advantage for him when he overtook Vettel with the bigger gap in the rear wing.
He made it look easy.
Yeah, very easy. Well, Ferrari had their own issues too. So that prediction, who would have predicted a Honda overpowering the Ferrari?
Oh my God!
Right?
When I watched it, I was like, no way. Like there's.
Yeah. So. It seems like the new regulations might pan out to not be bad, but mixed reactions. Some drivers said it's still difficult to follow. Grosjean, I think, said that it was better. So
yeah,
again, time will tell how the whole regulations will pan out. But it was cool to actually just see like 4 or 5 cars nose to tail following each other.
Yeah,
it's kind of rare to see.
They are overall they're faster, right?
Oh, yeah. Thank God, too. Because in the preseason, somebody, I think one of the engineers was saying, oh, it's going to be like 1.5 seconds slower with the new regs.
Oh,
I'm like,
God.
oh, great.
Yeah.
But now it's, I think they were almost a full second quicker this year's qualifying. And I reposted today on our Instagram at TBMF1Show. And you can see the speed going into turn 11, which is that, like, it's almost full throttle left-right-hander. And we can kind of show the video below. But check it out on our Instagram. It was posted by F1, and you really see the speeds. The cars look fantastic this season, and yeah, it seems like the cars are faster, which is good for us. So
yeah, it's great. I think we mentioned this Netflix documentary quite a lot, but I think with that, I was mentioning to you earlier about a lot of my coworkers watching that documentary and getting a little bit more into F1. I think we could see a lot more fans coming in this season as well with all that's going on, and what a great season to become a fan.
Yeah,
like we talked about the midfield battle, the top 3. It could be all over the place, and hopefully not have Mercedes dominance for 6th, 7th year in a row.
6th year now.
Year in a row, yeah. So it should be good. I'm very excited, and I'm expecting quite a lot for the top 8 teams.
Yeah, yeah.
We know who we're talking about.
No, I completely agree, and let us know in the comments too if you're a new fan to F1. I've been kind of on the Reddits lately, just checking some things out, and there's a lot of new fans that sort of maybe weren't that interested, and because of the Netflix documentary are starting to watch now. So yeah, if you're a new fan and are checking out our show, and if you may be checking out the Netflix documentary, I mean, let us know if that's kind of the one thing that brought you in or interested you in the sport. But I guess that was the aim from Netflix, and when Tyler's back next week, maybe we can sort of do a review of the series ourselves.
Yeah. I think you were saying you were like 5. I just finished it last weekend. I think you said you were 5 or 6 episodes in. Yeah. So I think they did a very good job, but obviously we'll leave that to when Tyler comes back, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when we're all caught up.
For sure. So was mostly it throughout the whole race. Obviously, the final things that we want to get to is, first of all, Verstappen and Red Bull.
Yep.
A very good start to the season for them. I think they were not exactly sure how this race was going to go for them because they thought Ferrari was going to be so strong, and nobody was really sure about Mercedes. But I think a podium P3 was a great result for them.
Because I don't think neither Daniel Ricciardo or Verstappen made it into the podium last year for Australia. So very good start for them.
Yeah, and they've struggled the last couple of seasons to get off to a really good start in the beginning of the season, especially in Australia. They've had to retire a couple of races back. So to start at the podium is good. For Honda, it's terrific. You saw the joy and the trying to find really great adjectives to describe it. They were just super happy because all that work, all the criticism that they got, and to see it pay off in the first race with a podium for them was like winning the world championship.
Oh yeah, like great start for their first season back. And I mean second season back, I guess technically with they were there with Toro Rosso last year, but when we mentioned a few times we weren't too sure how Honda was going to be doing coming into the first race, and overall very impressive for them. And I'm sure Red Bull had a whole lot to do with it, with their engineers working with the Honda engineers as well. So yeah, they say Honda's a little bit more reliable, so maybe we'll see we'll see that this year, and won't have as many DNFs. So.
Yeah, that's still a huge concern for me personally, is the reliability. But yeah, I mean, when you work with a team like Red Bull, it says a lot, I think. And again, Honda now, what is it, almost 5 years into the sport, or returning into the sport. They've probably figured out a bunch of stuff that they went wrong with in McLaren, but Red Bull's a whole different story.
Yeah,
that's a world-class team, and they've been winning the last couple of years, so I think that transition was easier.
Yeah.
But for Christian Horner and the drivers as well, for Max Verstappen, it's good news because, I mean, this partnership's really already paid off with this podium. And now Max can really – he's a contender now.
For sure. No, I agree.
Third place in the first race. He's right in the hunt now. So now it's consistent results, consistent on the podium.
Yep.
They're still downplaying their chances as championship contenders, which I think is fair. But to me, they will be up there for championship contenders if that engine is reliable. The power, it's there. If you look at the speed traps, Pierre Gasly was at the top, Verstappen was in the top 5. So the engine, not just for Red Bull, but also for Toro Rosso as well, looks like it can bring the power. So I think they'll be right up there. We still don't know what's going on with Ferrari.
Yeah, we haven't talked about them very much today.
Yeah, well, we can get to Ferrari now, actually, because that was a huge head scratcher for everybody.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to watch the entire race. I caught a glimpse of it, and then I watched the highlights afterwards, and I was confused as to what Ferrari was doing and how they got to where they were. And Charles Leclerc was like a second behind Vettel
in qualifying?
No, in this race.
I think he was close.
Yeah, he was very close.
Well, because team orders came into play, and they told Charles to stay behind them.
Yeah.
Which I didn't agree with at all. I don't think that team orders in the first race, come into play. I think that they were struggling, so they were trying to conserve the engine, but I still think that if Charles had the pace, then to just let him race.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. In the first race, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, and there was a solid enough gap between 5th and 6th that there would have been no worries anyway. So.
Yeah, almost a full 30 seconds.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ferrari playing politics right from the beginning. I hope that they don't blow this year again by doing, stupid stuff like that. Leclerc didn't have the best Ferrari debut, but I still think that with everything that was going on internally, it was still okay. And, he almost touched Vettel in the first lap on the outside.
A lot of potential from Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
A lot of potential. I could see him giving Vettel a fight and the rest of the top 3 a fight this year about what to do, because it's going to be very interesting. He's wanted to be in Ferrari since he was a kid, so he's going to fight for his position. He's not going to. I think a few races in we'll start to see a little more fire from Charles Leclerc, a little more fight from him about where he wants to be and what he wants to do with the team. So
yeah. But Ferrari as a whole, it was, I watched all the practice sessions, and, you see Mercedes go first in FP1, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Same thing in FP2 and FP3, and you're like, oh, shit, not again, 6th year in a row. Yeah, and Ferrari was just off, and what was interesting is Brundle was making the observations in the onboards that the Ferrari looked much more balanced and more drivable than the Mercedes.
Huh.
Like the Mercedes, if you look at the onboard, Lewis's head was bobbing so much because, it's a bumpy track because it is a street circuit. But it looked way more bent out of shape than the Ferrari did. But the Ferrari was slower.
Yeah.
So maybe the Ferrari was more drivable, but the Mercedes was quicker.
Yeah.
And, I thought that was interesting because that maybe led me to believe that it's something to do with the power unit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of did some investigating on Reddit, which is totally reliable.
Dark hole.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of theories going around, and we wanted to talk about it. And again, none of this is confirmed.
Yep.
It's a lot of rumors out there, but that's kind of Formula One in a whole.
Yeah.
Ferrari's not going to come out and say, well, yeah, it's an engine issue. We messed it up.
Yeah, we effed up the first race of the season,
Yeah. They're going to play politics and say, well, we don't know. And, I mean, maybe Vettel was telling the truth and they didn't really know, but some of the things that I was reading, and we can post the sort of subreddit so you guys can check them out yourselves, but they were saying that could be an issue with the Ferrari power unit because they were doing a lot of lifting, coasting. Vettel wasn't getting up all the way until 8th gear in most times of the races on the straights, which leads people to believe that he was using a much fuel. He was fuel saving, and he was using a much less less powerful engine mode.
Yeah.
So,
well, like we said earlier, Verstappen made it look easy to overtake him.
Yeah.
And obviously, like if they weren't running their engine to its full potential, that could be a big reason why we saw Honda beating a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are all just theories at the moment, so...
Yeah, and one of the theories were that it could be something to do with the whole energy recovery system and, like, clipping of the engine or derating, which is the proper term, and this happened a lot, like, 3 to 4 years ago when kind of the whole energy recovery system was still relatively new with the hybrid power units.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically, from what I understand, and I'm no expert at all, so don't take my word for it, but do your own research, but from what I understood, it's like, when the battery is charged, when you accelerate at the beginning of a straight or whatever, it uses most of that power and the energy when you're accelerating.
Okay.
Because you need more power coming out of the corner rather than later on in the straight.
Later on in the straight, for sure.
And that's the problem with the derating is that I think it's just the battery doesn't charge properly.
Okay.
And you run a lack of power because I think the MGUK itself is 160 horsepower. Wow. And then the internal combustion engine, the rest of the components, it's like 720
my car.
or something. Yeah, there you go. Hey, your car's pretty good then. We'll strap on an MGUK on yours too, and then
to double it.
Yeah. So some people were suggesting that theory of it could be a derating issue, and I don't know if it's a fundamental design flaw with the Ferrari power unit because when you look at the speed traps. The Ferrari, not just the works team, but the customer teams as well. Haas was down in the speed traps. Alfa Romeo too. Romain Grosjean of Haas was complaining of state of charge. So if the SOC settings, he was complaining that he wasn't able to charge the battery at some times during the race. And then there's a couple of onboards where sort of the revs kind of kill out for Vettel, and it sounds like he's lifting and coasting, but the revs just like kick off. It just dies all of a sudden. So, and even during the race, Vettel was like, asking the radio, it's like, why are we so slow?
Yeah.
So that could be one theory. Another theory that I was reading more recently was that last season they had a really good simulator program.
Okay.
Because Danny Kvyat was doing a lot of simulator work with them when he was obviously off in the sidelines. And I think there was a couple other drivers as well. There was Verline, and I'm forgetting who else, but they had a really good simulator team. So that helped them a lot, especially after Australia when they had a couple of issues after testing in 2018 to sort of just figure out the setup of the car going into the races. Because that's a big part of Formula One now with all the technology. They can really make the simulators almost as good as the car itself.
Yeah. And
this season, they really struggled from what I was reading in the sim because obviously Kvyat's driving now. I think the rest of their... Brendan Hartley was doing the Sebring race in the States, so he wasn't available because he was doing some. And I think Verline, he was doing simulator work that weekend, but they just couldn't figure out the issue with the car.
Huh.
So that to me makes a little more sense maybe than the power unit, that they just had the setup wrong.
Yep.
another reason why they could be so slow is because the setup was wrong. They went for a more high downforce setup, so that's why they couldn't get more top speed out of the car. And they might have been struggling with some front end issues, which is why they were so slow.
Yeah.
Again, these are all theories. None of them have been confirmed at all by Ferrari. A lot of this comes sort of from Italian newspapers, and I don't know how much you can believe them, right? It's all rumor.
Yeah.
So it's up to your speculation, and like you said, we can post the links to these articles. You guys can check them out for yourselves.
Yeah.
Bahrain, to me, is the big one. When they turn up in Bahrain, if they're down in the speed traps again, if they're really off the pace in qualifying and off in race pace again, then it might be a fundamental issue with the power unit.
Okay.
But if they do turn up like they did last year and win the race and get on pole, then we'll know everything is back to normal.
Yeah, we'll know I mean, it was weird not seeing Vettel in the top 3.
Very weird, yeah.
Yeah, like...
But just struggling, just being so slow, that
exactly.
was... Especially after testing. Like, I'm watching this, I'm like, fuck, we look like such idiots because we're all like, Ferrari, I'm going to run away with the Ferrari's going to run away with the championship.
Like I said, it was very weird not seeing Vettel up there. I mean, the entire driver lineup this year has completely changed. I think it's only 2, maybe 1 team now that's kept the same driver lineup.
2, yeah. I think
Haas is 1.
Mercedes.
Yes, Mercedes. Sorry, but yeah, it was very weird seeing the entire driver lineup obviously shuffled around here and there. But I mean, these guys are the top 20 drivers in the world, so it should be interesting to see how the rest of the season fares out. And like you said, Bahrain is a very important track where we can actually see the full potential of these cars. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
very much.
And if you're a Ferrari fan, I mean, keep in mind that last season they had a lot of issues during testing, and they won the first race, but they were 0.6 off in qualifying. I think this year was 0.7. And the last 2 years too in Australia, I mean, they won the race very luckily through safety cars and Mercedes mistakes, and then they came out and did very well in the next couple of races. So don't panic just yet.
No, I'm not worried.
The good news is that there's 2 weeks from Australia to Bahrain to kind of figure things out. If I had to give a sort of definitive speculation, I think that they just got the setup wrong and they got the engine mapping wrong, and they caught it somewhat early in the weekend, and then in the race they just wanted to conserve and save the engine because they realized they're not going to have the pace to deal with Mercedes, and I think they just wanted to be conservative, regroup for Bahrain, and then continue on with their season.
Well, if they did have an issue, I think you mentioned Lewis Hamilton also had an issue in his car as well.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. We almost forgot that. Yeah. He had some floor damage, I think, on the left rear.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly when he got that during the race. I believe it might have been during the first lap on the start.
Probably coming around to the first track with Ricciardo's front wing or something.
Yeah, he might have ran over a bit of front wing or something like that, and I think that's why he was so far off the pace.
Yeah, it was weird, 20-second difference between both the Mercedes. It's very weird to see.
Yeah.
Because they are driving the same car with just different numbers on them. That's just, that's the only difference. So it was very weird to see, and especially Verstappen being 0.3 of a second behind, something like that.
Yeah, he was closing. Yeah.
He was close. Like, I think if they had 1 or 2 more laps, I think he would have caught up, and we would have seen Verstappen in second. So weird, really issues we wouldn't expect from Mercedes and Ferrari. Well, I mean, Hamilton couldn't have done anything about his issue.
Yeah,
shit happens on the track. But yeah, very, very weird situation coming from both Ferrari, Mercedes, and in terms of Pierre Gasly, Red Bull as well. We would have expected him to see somewhere a little higher up, not behind his old team.
Yeah, that got hurt, right?
A little bit. I mean, if I was Pierre Gasly, I'd be pretty hurt by that.
Yeah, yeah, especially like not being able to get out of Q1. That was a bit rough, but. I mean, there's 21 races, so...
yeah, we'll see how it all goes.
Yeah. And the last thing I just kind of wanted to talk about before we wrap it up was the whole point for the fastest lap. They brought it in very sort of last minute the week of, and unfortunately we weren't able to do a preview, but it was like, I think, 3 days before free practice they kind of brought it in. And I sort of had mixed reactions. I was like, I don't know if I really like it just giving it to the top 10. I would have liked if it was the whole grid.
But realistically, I don't think anybody in the bottom 10 would get fastest lap. right? If you, I mean,
if they pitted late for fresh tires,
yes, maybe. But I mean, it makes sense. You know, it gives the rest of everybody out of the podium a little more chance to get their points up. And you know, is the points going to affect the points for teams as well? Probably not, eh?
Well, I think it counts for both championships. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it should throw a little wrench in everyone's plans on how they're going to go about it. Sorry, because now you're not just fighting for top 10. You're fighting for fastest lap as well. Or if you could change the game plan or the last 10 races. Say if you're in the 10th place, I want to get extra points. Let's go for fastest lap and let's not worry about getting up any higher. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I really didn't think it was going to affect much of the races or the championship. And honestly, I think I was wrong because in the final 10 laps or so, you saw a lot of jostling between Verstappen and Bottas and Hamilton as well going for the final lap. And people were saying, it's not really going to affect the championship. I would disagree. It's 21 points on the table.
Yeah.
And when you look at Valtteri, he scored 26 points. I mean, I think he's already 14 points ahead of Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah.
So it creates a pretty big gap because it will add up eventually.
How many extra points is it again?
21.
21 overall. Wow.
Yeah, because 1 point per race for the 21 races. So when you look at last season, at times the gap between Hamilton and Vettel sometimes was 20 points, sometimes it was 30. So you get a race and the fastest lap, your guy DNFs your championship rival. That's 26 points gained right there. And it could also be another thing where the final race of the season, they could be within a couple points of each other, and that extra bonus point might help either the leader or the championship contenders. So over the long course of this season, it's going to shake things up. It made the last 10 laps of the race really exciting because generally the last 10 laps of a Grand Prix like this would be very boring at the front.
Yes, for sure.
It would just be guys conserving tires, conserving the engine, and just kind of bringing the car home. But now you had Valtteri going for it on used tires. You had Max Verstappen turning up the quali modes to go for fastest lap. The engineers must be pulling the hair out of their head because you don't really want to run the engine like that in the race, but...
Well, think of it this way. Verstappen was 2 points off of Kimi Räikkönen last year. Top 3.
So there's a good point,
So if he had made three fastest laps, he would have been ahead of Kimi.
Yeah.
So, it could really, really shake things up this year, depending on how well the top 2 drivers are doing, So if they're 1 or 2 points off, go for fastest lap, be in the top 3, get those extra points. So, it could very well... not completely change how the standings are going to be at the end of the season, but it could very much change how some drivers go about their driving style slightly.
Right.
So,
but when you look at it in a whole as 21 extra points, then it definitely does mean something.
Yeah.
So, it looks like it's going to be something exciting. So I don't mind the addition so far.
No, it should be good. It should be very interesting.
Yeah. That's pretty much it for the race. I mean, it was obviously not the most exciting race in terms of overtaking, but the fact that it was the first race after such a long time off made it really exciting for the whole weekend. And a lot of positives I think to take out of this race. The midfield looks really good. I think that the battle at the front will be exciting. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait for Bahrain to see where Ferrari will reposition themselves and how this championship will unfold. But like you mentioned, if you're just getting into F1, I think this is a great season to start with.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think we'll have a lot to talk about in the coming weeks and races to come. So we got F1 Fantasy set up for this year again. We kind of were last minute sort of setting it up, so we'll just extend. We'll extend our deadline for including that, but we'll include that in the description of this video and also on our social media, so you can join our league. I think we got about 4 or 5 participants so far.
Yeah, well, maybe it will be better if you make it a race or 2 in. You can see how some of the drivers are going to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a bad thing, right? Just if you don't pick anybody from Williams, you'll have a pretty decent. You're
solid.
Run.
Maybe McLaren as well.
Yeah,
but yeah, it should be good. That was my fault. Well, we're at the end.
So yeah, there you go.
It should be okay.
Yeah, it's there. But yeah, we'll try and get as many people like we did last year. Then we'll sort out all if we do another giveaway this season. Hopefully we can do that.
Yeah, we'll try and figure something out. Last year was somebody in the U.S., so it made it very easy.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, that'll be that. We got Bahrain coming up in less than 2 weeks or so. We're gonna hope to bring you guys a race preview for that next week. And if not, then we'll definitely be having the race recap with Tyler McDonald joining us.
Yeah, Tyler is very disappointed he couldn't make it out today. He said he had a lot to say about this race.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he did. And, you know, his boy, the Torpedo, did really well. So I couldn't wait to hear about it.
I really wanted to see him to see what he would say. So maybe we could at one point get him to go on our Twitter and, you know, give a couple of his opinions. Yeah.
Yeah, do an Instagram live or something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll see.
Yeah, no, it was busy time for this week between the two of you guys. So it's a bit later than we normally would do our race recaps, but it actually kind of helps with races being spread out a little bit. Then you kind of got more time.
I was about to say it's not as many back-to-backs this season, so hopefully we can we'll have a little bit more time to do it, put it out. Obviously, this one is a little bit later than we were expecting, but yeah, no, it's we'll hopefully get a little more side content this year as well. So
yeah, and our studio is slowly coming together. We'll
probably see more pictures next week.
Yeah. You suggested a big logo just on the back of the wall there.
I'm thinking a giant Backmarkers F1 Show logo right in the middle. You know, so we'll see.
I like that idea. Yeah, for sure. It'll come together nicely, and then when Tyler gets here. In our regular episodes, we'll probably have our 2 or 3 camera setup like you guys are used to. But, yeah, the show goes on either way, and we're going to keep bringing you these. So thanks, everyone, for supporting. We got a decent number of subscribers now.
Yeah, we're above 500. So and like you were saying, usually when you and I do these things alone, we get a lot of views. So
so take that, Tyler.
Show up, Tyler.
Hey, I'm just saying that our highest viewed video was just me and you. So
it's true. But I think we talked a lot about Verstappen in that episode, so I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a popular topic on this show, that's for sure. Anyways, anything else from you? Final thoughts?
I guess we're going to do a preview, so I'll save my thoughts for the next race. So,
yeah, we'll try and do we'll be a bit more concrete for these race previews. Try and, you know, take a look at the track layout, best places for overtaking, sort of track history and strategy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll try and keep those like relatively short just to get you guys excited for the weekend. So that'll be I think Bahrain is next weekend. So yeah, early next week or so.
Is it?
I think the 31st.
31st, right? I was gonna say like the very last weekend of March.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's everything from us.
All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us on this episode. We'll be back soon with the Bahrain Grand Prix preview. Until then, have a good day.
Thank you.